Alright, this is just a quick video to go over my process in making RoboSub obstacles for Gazebo. So the first step is I have to build the meshes. I like to use FreeCAD. This is just an assembly. We have two parts. There is the boards and there is the levers. I have these separate because I like my thing to be able to move. So you can see here we have the board. Colors aren't really important. I don't export those anyway. From FreeCAD, I just export the meshes. So I export this separately and this separately. Then I pull those into Blender. So this is where I add the textures. Obviously, this wouldn't have a texture initially. I thought there was green around these. Must be using an old texture. Let me take a look. Yeah, okay. This actually isn't the latest texture. That's kind of funny. Doesn't matter. This is the one that I actually ended up using. I'm not sure why this copy is old. Anyway, so in Blender, basically you go, you select your mesh. In this case, got to be in edit mode, I think. You hit U, you unwrap it. You go over to scene. No, that's not what I want to do. Okay, what am I doing? This UV editor. So you can see it unwrapped like this. And I could tell from looking at it that I needed to put the body in this third or ninth of the texture and the head in this one and the rotations. I just played with it until it worked. Another little detail that can be annoying. Sometimes the viewport shading doesn't work right. Just be aware of that. I put it in texture mode also. I've had problems before with the shading. Sometimes you need to change it depending on what you're running. Anyway, so once you've got your texture and you've drawn it, so for making the texture, basically, I just took the image, edited in GIMP, cut out the pieces as I thought made sense, put them in the quadrants they're expected, and then in the UV editor, just, add the image, add the texture image, and then you'll have this. So you can see this is only one part. So when I bring this in, I also make sure it's scaled properly. When I export from FreeCAD, it's usually in millimeters, so I have to size it up by 1,000. You gotta make sure that each individual pieces of the meshes are lined up. Anyway, then we have to export. So if I jump back to the default view, make sure that's selected. We export that as a DAE. Boom. So that's been exported. So something that can be good to check. Sometimes this gets screwed up. The technique, just make sure the diffuse is mapped to the texture. I like to make sure the specular is turned off. You should be able to tweak those here in the material properties. Not, if I remember correctly. Anyway, so you export your DAE, and then you have your DAE. Oh, important detail. Did I mention that? Parameters. Copy UV textures. Don't do materials. UV textures, copy. If you have those things set, it should export properly to a format that Gazebo will not be irritated with. So you have to take those two files and, of course, any extra files and create this model for Gazebo. So there's two extra files here that you have to write. These are pretty straightforward. Model config, just some metadata, who made it, description. Now the SDF. This is where it gets fun, especially for the vampire board because it's an interactive element. You move the lever. So start with just a model. You have to place it, so just a default position so it's above the ground normally when it spawns. So base link, this is going to be the main board. Have to come up with some sensible values for the mass and the inertia just to make sure in the physics simulation you don't touch it and it just explodes away from you. Yeah, so visual and collision, I'm using the DAE for both. Then the lever link. So I think this is a prismatic joint. Let's go to the joint. Yeah, prismatic joint. We add some dampening, some friction. So this way the lever can be moved left and right. There's limits. So these limits are just set so it's got a left block and a right block stays in its rail. And this way, you have to give it a little force when you push on it to move it over. I forget what these are. Oh, right. So I didn't make the full model, as you can see. No feet. So there is a big invisible square. Actually, I think it does have a visual element. There's a big block at the bottom that the thing's attached to. And it's got a decent 10 kilograms of mass to hold the thing down. So that's pretty important. And that is just a fixed joint. So that holds the whole thing down. And of course, the lever, we have the visual element, we have the collision element so you can push on it. Sensible, inertia, mass, so the physics don't explode. Alright, and so once you have all that, you can, for example, run Gazebo, assuming you have it set up with your ROS includes and your paths and your model. Your models are set up correctly. Just real quick to be clear on what I mean when I say that. In the package XML, you gotta just make sure to add the Gazebo ROS model path. And then if this workspace is sourced, should be in here. Okay, maybe I did not source my workspace. See, important details. So that's ROS, and that's that. So I've sourced everything. So now if we fire up Gazebo, it'll be in that magical window. Okay, maybe not. Maybe it just wants to make me look like a jackass. Okay, let's just do something a little less stupid here. So we'll just copy that model to Gazebo models. We'll just put it in here, so it has to know it exists now. Alright, do you know it exists? Yes. So there's my model. So there's the magic base. Alright, it's sitting on the ground plane. I can, for example, this lever, if I can select it, lever link, I can apply a force. So this is simulating the motion of the lever. So we'll apply a force of 1 Newton. Let's see, is that enough to do anything? No, 10 newtons? Is there a time on this? Okay. Just trust me when I say it can be moved. There we go. Okay. Takes a lot of force to move the lever. Apply. Yeah. So now the physics are there, so when you push on it, it moves. Very fancy. So, it is a bit hard to move, so let me just... Oh, man. Let's see if I can find this video. Torpedo target test. Alright, I'm not just going to fire everything up just to show this, so... Oh, that's loud. Okay. So you can see the models in Gazebo. This gripper arm is kind of broken. I still haven't figured out the joints for that. But, not important. What is important is the demonstration. Oh, not too soon. Yes, there we go. So you can see I'm manually controlling this. This isn't autonomous right now. So you can see I move the lever by strafing with the robot arm in contact. And then you'll see I happen to be a terrible shot here. If we jump to a point. Yes, now you can see how bad I am. Yes, look. So that one missed completely. That one hit the board. That one hit the board. There we go. Finally a good shot. Alright. So yeah, that gives you a general idea of how to build a model and get in the gazebo. Obviously, didn't touch on every little detail, but if you have any specific questions, you can leave a comment. All right, that's all. Bye.